Welcome to Syntax. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Frontend Happy Hour podcast.
Welcome to this week's JS Party.
Live from Shipshape Studios, this is Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot, with your hosts, Robbie the Wagner and me, Charles William Carpenter III.
That's right, Charles. We drink whiskey and talk about web development. I mean, it's all in the name. It's not that deep.
This is Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot. Do not adjust your set. Hey everyone, we want to invite you to join us at All Things Open. All Things Open is the largest open source tech web conference on the U.S. East Coast. It's hosted annually in the heart of Research Triangle Park in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. Target audiences include developers, engineers, decision makers, and open source community members, and anyone else involved with open source software. 4,000 to 5,000 people from all over the world are expected in October. We're going to be there. More information can be found online at 2024.allthingsopen.org. I really hope I don't have to spell that for you.
What's up, everybody? Finally figured out how live streaming works. Sorry for the delay. We are live here on September 11th. Lane wanted to record today specifically for some reason.
I don't know. I think he hates America.
Yeah, I think he should start by leading us through the national anthem.
My country, 'tis of me. Did anybody know I was going to sing? I'm just going to karaoke the rest of this episode and just let Lane sit there and wait to get a word in edgewise. But speaking of,
I'll need a lot of this to get through that.
We do want to let you intro yourself and tell the folks listening who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I can do that, I suppose. So I guess predominantly for the listeners of this podcast, I'm the host of Backend Banter, which recently wrapped up season 1, planning a season 2 for next year. But there's a good backlog of episodes for anyone that's interested. Both Robbie and Charles have been on the pod. So I did the rounds before wrapping up season 1. If you're interested in Go development and Backend specifically, that's that podcast. And then I'm also the founder of Boot.dev. That's my full-time thing. So the podcast has been kind of a side project, kind of a, hey, I need to shill Boot.dev somewhere, so I better start a podcast. But you can check that out if you're interested in learning backend development.
you're a paid shill.
I pay myself to shill myself. Yeah.
Right. I hope it's a good rate. You're also a former engineering manager and a subpar front-end engineer. I don't know. I'm just reading the notes here. Robbie puts these together. So
It's very, very accurate. Subpar might even be generous, although it has gotten better over the years. It started out pretty rough.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, let's take the edge off. I know you're a shy fellow. Let's talk about today's whiskey, which this bottle looks kind of nice.
Old Maysville.
Old Maysville. So Old Maysville is from the Old Pogue Distillery. This is a rye malt whiskey, which sounds very interesting. It's 100 proof. That's bottled in bond. It's no longer a federal thing, but if you say that, you always know it's going to be 100 proof. It's actually a very limited availability bottle, too. It's only in Kentucky, Illinois, and New York. Lucky for us, we get our booze from New York, and it's one of the original brands from the Old Pogue Distillery, founded in 1876 in Maysville, Kentucky. So the mash bill is 100% rye malt. That's all I got for you.
That's a history lesson. This is like the third time I've had whiskey in my life. So
really? This is interesting. We're going to get into that some more. But
that smells fruity.
Yeah, like jam, like a strawberry jam a little bit. Oof. I hate when you put that into my head first, though, before I smell it. Look at Lane just getting in there. He's like, it's the third time, and I can't fucking wait to get some more in my mouth.
This is the alcoholic arc. Started a mullet, time to start drinking.
Yeah, I was a bad influence in Montana, wasn't I? Like pouring it up.
Yeah. Oh, that is good, though.
Yeah, I'm getting like a little flour, a little like strawberry jam out of it. I'm going to prime up.
Smells like grape Fanta to me.
Hope none of my employees are watching. They drinking on the job. It's only 3 o'clock here.
Yeah, they're like, well, this is okay.
Listen, it's 5 o'clock here, so it's all right.
That is tasty. So it has like, those floral notes in the beginning for me. Yeah, a little bit fruit.
Through some violets.
Violets? You're turning violet. Yeah, you can
really
make
just
up
say
words,
anything you
Lane. It
want.
doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be serious. But whatever it is to you is your truth. Your truth is...
Alan just DM'd me to tell me that he is watching, in fact. And
And he's very disappointed in
and
you.
he's very disappointed in me.
And Alan is like, well, make sure you save me some, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to report you to HR.
No HR problems.
HR is Gusto, which is just a robot. What can the AI do to you? Nothing yet. Yeah, this is very interesting, though, throughout. I'm still not kind of landing on... It's kind of smooth going down, really enjoying that. The combination of being a malted rye, too. So we've had some, like, malted barley, a few different malted whiskeys, but I don't know if anything's been
It's like if
100%
you
malted
took
rye.
a bunch of sweet tarts and added some black pepper to them.
Yeah, peppery is a good one. I still get floral initially when I first like take a sip. I get a little like potpourri kind of floral note, peppery note. Just can't kind of land on what else. I should just say dried apricots and get done with it.
It's a lot stronger than what I'm used to. I mean, I've mostly had wine since partaking in alcohol, which is a fairly new event for me.
So what is that journey? We don't have to like overly dig into it, but like, okay, you didn't drink, now you do drink. Predominantly around wine. You've had whiskey, probably a few other spirits, handful of times. What other whiskeys have you had?
I don't know. I don't know what they're called. I'm not sophisticated enough.
Were they in plastic jugs or were they actual labeled bottles?
No, they were labeled bottles at my brother's house.
Okay.
We did some shots on a Mario Party.
Okay.
Lose a game, do a shot.
Yeah.
But he had quite the assortment, so I'm just like doing stuff. He's
Okay.
he's telling me to do that one, do this one.
Okay, so he's not like giving you like swill. He's probably
No,
got a few
it was good
things
stuff.
and it's decent stuff. Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
and you enjoyed that. Shots though are usually like, it doesn't kind of matter. You just get this down and away and get into my head as quick as possible. And then you play a game of like how many shots before you can no longer Mario Party.
Correct. And I am bad at Mario Party, so I did end up pretty hammered.
Yeah. Is that per mini game win and loss or entire match? Because if it's per mini game, you're dead after like...
It's per minigame. It didn't last too long.
Okay, that's fair enough. Like a good hour or two max kind of thing, and then you're asleep on the couch.
We did have a few CPUs in there, though. So, like, when you'd beat the CPUs, no one would have to drink, so that keeps it going a little bit longer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. Make it somewhat possible to not just be knocked out in 15 minutes.
Yeah. But to give you just a little bit of the history, because you asked, I grew up Mormon, or LDS, for people who prefer the church to be referred to that way. And I served a Mormon mission down in Paraguay when I was 18 to 20. And then I left the church when I was 24 or 25. And then so I've been out of the church for about 5 years. I'm almost 30 now.
Oh, you are a baby. I did not know this. Oh,
30
okay.
in a month and a half.
So finally, Robbie's not the youngest.
Actually, if you want to hear the whole, if you care, if you want to hear the whole story, it's over on Glauber Costa has a podcast about religion and tech, and I did an episode with him. I think it was like episode 3 of the save file. So I won't go into the whole thing, but basically, I was a church member, and they don't drink. And so after leaving the church, I now drink socially. I wouldn't say it's a pastime of mine, but when you're on a podcast.
Yeah, when you're on a whiskey podcast, you partake, and that's totally fine. It's interesting, and we don't have to like go too deep into it or whatever else, especially if you've told the story before. We're all about not repeating the same shit over and over again here, but it's interesting that you still refer to it as the church, not a church. It's the church. There are many churches, Mormon temples, I don't think I've ever seen an ugly one. Like, they're all extremely beautiful buildings, big into architecture and everything else. And so all of that, but it is still a church, and there are many churches, but...
There's 2 reasons as to why that habit is one that probably will never die for me. One is I live in Utah, and so... Yes, there are more churches, but like there's a church. You know what I mean? Like there's a church. There's one church. Yeah. There's a Mormon church on every corner. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is just tidbit of Mormon theology. It's not like a lot of other non-denominational is not the right term, but there's a lot of Christian faiths that kind of have the belief that, if you believe in the Bible, the New Testament, and Jesus, like, you'll be okay. And these kind of like minor squabbles we have about beliefs don't matter too much. It's more about believing in Jesus. Mormonism is not that way. It is a you're in or you're out. Either the church is correct or it's not. And so we say the church because it's like, okay, you could believe in Jesus and that's great. I'm glad we agree on it, but it doesn't matter. Like you need to be a Mormon if you really want to be saved. So there's like a sticking point there about the theology and kind of, the reason why we would say the church when you're in it, at least.
Yeah. If you want to plan it, there's only one way. And also, doesn't matter what you pick. When you die, they're going to save you anyway. In the end, you get saved.
Kind of. I mean,
I'm sure there's more nuance to that.
But
yes. I have a number of, and I mean this in an endearing way, Momo friends. And so, all good. Plenty of respect there. But I'm going to get drunk. Speaking of, hey, Robbie, do you think you could explain to Lane our rating system?
Yeah, it is 1 to 14 Pikachus. No, it's 0 to 8 tentacles. 0 being the worst. You just want to throw this away. 8 being this is amazing. I've never had anything better. 4 being kind of middle of the road. And we'll make Chuck go first.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I'm going to throw in the side thing to Lane is you can categorize this in any way you want. You can categorize it to the few whiskeys you've had, just to alcoholic beverages in general, like how apt would you be to reach for this versus a glass of wine of, your favorite Pinot Noir or whatever it may be. So feel free to just use this rating system however it works for you. We have a lot of alcohol, and so we tend to segment into whiskey types and things like that. This is a very unique whiskey, so I don't know whether to categorize it with like a regular rye or to put this as like, I don't know, we've had a number of like malted whiskeys, but then of course like Scotch is a malted whiskey. And so I don't know how to categorize it, but I'm just going to try to say in general, I think it was like $65 or something like that. The price point is great. The flavor is very unique. I'm enjoying it. So as it opens up, I think, I expect it to continue to get better. Would definitely have again. This is like a solid 7.5 for me as I'm feeling it right now. Like I'm really liking this. I think that I have a few of my go-tos, and if I wanted something a little different from that, I would easily think about having more of this. Yeah. So that's it for me. 7.5. You want to give it a swing, Lane, or?
Yeah. I can go next.
Sure.
This is probably the best whiskey I've had, which, like I said, probably a pool of maybe 3 to 5 different whiskeys. There's a lot more flavor. There's a lot more going on. I think the only other whiskey that I think it's a whiskey. Is Fireball a whiskey?
Yeah, technically.
I don't think it's supposed to be consumed by humans, but it is.
I don't like that one.
Okay, it has a whiskey base and it has a cinnamon flavoring.
It has like a lot of formaldehyde or something you're not supposed to drink. I forget what it is.
Like maybe if you don't ever want to age and or be alive, like you should drink a lot of that, but otherwise.
That's the only one I remember from my Mario Party endeavors. It's the only one I remember the name of. And I like this a lot more than that.
Yeah,
that's a tough
Fireball's a good shot whiskey. You don't want to sip on Fireball.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No. Changing my mind a little bit about whiskeys. Like I said, wine has been my favorite. Still probably my favorite, just because I'm kind of a basic bitch and I like sweet things, right? Like,
oh gosh,
I feel that.
So now I'm wondering about your wine taste.
Oh,
yeah, like are you drinking like Riuniti or like and then like White Zin or something?
I don't drink often enough to know the names, but basically when I go somewhere, I'm like, give me something sweet, and then it works out usually. But yeah, this is interesting. It's not sweet, but it's got a lot going on, and if you drink it slow, it's not too powerful. So
right. So what did you give it in our complex scale? Yes.
Yeah, let's. I'm gonna give it like a 6.5 probably if I'm just rating all alcoholic beverages.
Not super sweet, but good.
Yeah.
I can't pick out anything bad about it. So I want to say 8, but also I feel like I'm just not in the mood to say this is a top of the scale today. So I'll match you, Chuck, and say like 7.5. Like I don't have anything bad to say about it. I'm just not prepared to give it an 8 at this moment.
I think it's like the fact that it's a bit elusive too, that it has limited availability, and we have this also kind of is like, oh yeah, this is special.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of digging that. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable though. That's it. It's a good one. Yeah. We bought it from DeWineSpot. Is it .com? I don't even know.
I think it's .co.
Yeah, DeWineSpot online. So if anybody does decide they'd like to also try it, that's where we found it. Nothing special there, but yeah, there you go. They ship all over the place. I've never found a place in the United States, the continental United States, they would not ship to so far. But we'll see. Don't try it to Canada.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't go well every time.
Yeah.
All right, who's ready for hot takes?
I'm always ready.
That's what I came for.
Yeah, that's all. That's why you're here. Let's flip the script, Robbie. Ooh. I think you should start out.
Okay, we got a new one on here.
I got a couple in there. I'm gonna see.
Object-oriented programming or functional?
These for me? Do I just jump right in?
No, jump in. Yeah, nobody cares what we think. I don't know if you've realized this. Nobody cares. We're beyond the whiskey. Our opinions are no longer important.
We facilitate. That's about it.
It's so much more fun being a guest than a host. And sometimes I'm sitting there as a host on my podcast and I'm like, God, I just want to say all my things. So this will be fun. Man, if I had to pick one. So here's the first hot take. I don't think these things are nearly as opposite as a lot of new programmers think they are. When you really like break down OOP and functional programming, there's only like one thing that really kind of conflicts. And it's the idea of like inheritance and shared state. But OOP has some really great tenets, things like encapsulation and polymorphism. And those things exist within the functional paradigm. So I guess my hot take would be take the inheritance and the statefulness out of OOP, which I get that sounds like a lot, but everything else that you learn in like an intro to object-oriented programming class, pretty solid. But if I had to pick, I mean, there's more good ideas, I think, in the functional paradigm.
Yeah, it sounds like a Go programmer to me.
I think inheritance is, not great. It gets people into a lot of problems, but I think classes are like very easy to grok. The object-oriented paradigms I feel like are easier to follow and explain than functional programming. And like, if we could just tell people like do a composable object-oriented style instead of inheriting from your base classes or whatever, like it would be fine. But I don't know.
I don't know is a good, it depends is what you're supposed to say.
Yeah, it does depend.
Yeah, it always depends. Okay.
The problem is a class, like, sorry, just to go a little bit more into that. Class is like the most, it's like the biggest fucking idea. And I don't mean like great idea. I mean like there's so much that gets bundled into the idea of a class.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you start comparing it to other entities in programming, it's weird because it's like, okay, in JavaScript, you've got a class. And if you squint, it's kind of like how you might use like an object literal in JavaScript or like a dictionary in Python or like a struct in Go. Yep. It's also kind of like how you'd use a map in Go, right? Like key value pairs of things. And then it's got the whole idea of methods, which again in Go, you can use structs for. You don't need the whole class. Inheritance is packed on there. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in the idea of a class, which has always been kind of weird to me. I've always wondered if maybe there's a different way to structure all the various features of a class so that it doesn't all have to be shoved into one data structure.
Well, you brought it up, so this is a good point, I think, to stick on for a second. And it's just that this is that everybody fucking hates classes now. Functional, pure functions, whatever, are awesome or you're stupid, which is a stupid statement to make anyway across the board. It's like, this is a set of tools and you either know how to use them or not, and you use them in this direction or whatever else. It doesn't mean we can't come to the same end. I believe that to be true. But conversely is that like we fought so hard to get classes in the spec. We faked classes for so long in JavaScript and now they're here and they're dumb and nobody likes them. And it's like,
it's so sad for whoever like pushed so hard to get them in.
Yeah, that sums up all JavaScript, though.
Yeah.
We're all like, I hate everything. And then you get it and you're like, this is dumb. I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah, like, because like there's like shiny new, like, ooh, zoom, squirrel, happening all the time at such a crazy rate. And the spec takes a long time to update and, continue along and like kind of morph. there's no patience anymore, which is why I feel like I've started to look at a lot of like the old is new again. And that's Carson's fault, actually, because this whole like hypermedia thing and whatever else, like the base of the internet are these things, and they still exist and they actually still work pretty good. Maybe don't overthink it. Oh, too late. We've been overthinking it for a while. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I think JavaScript and C++, at least in my mind, they kind of fall into this little category of like, they just want to have everything for everyone. Like every feature, like if you think you might want to program a certain way, it seems to make its way into these languages. And of course that has the weird side effect, or I should say the unfortunate side effect of there being just a lot of different ways to do the same thing in the same language. And maybe for JavaScript that is the right call, because we're all kind of forced to write JavaScript anyways, because it's the only thing that really runs. I know this is WASM, but like it's the only thing that really runs in a browser. And so maybe supporting different paradigms is inevitable just because everyone's forced to touch it. But
yeah. I mean, it's been forced to extend its grasp and reach for so many reasons. I'm not convinced that the same reasons apply of why it started to reach in that way. I don't know. I mean, it depends. But we are down this like lane of complexity and a certain way of doing things, and definitely like a way of thinking that, and I could be wrong, of course, but I think that every once in a while you should stop and think like, why am I doing this? And is this the right way to address that? I don't know.
No, stopping and thinking is never a good idea.
Yeah, don't do that. Just take whatever ChatGPT says and put that in. It'll be fine. Hold on. I need to ask this important question though, which is...
This is important.
It is. Yeah, it kind of matters. We could probably just end the stream if it doesn't go well, but
yeah.
Tailwind or vanilla CSS?
Oh, Tailwind for sure. And I can give you a little
Saved
bit.
it.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit more. First, I want to say this is coming from someone that eschews. Is that the right word? God, that sounds so sophisticated. That's not right.
Shoes.
That can't be right.
Shoes.
That hates frameworks and tries to be a very minimalistic programmer. It's very much kind of a Go philosophy, which I'm predominantly a Go programmer. And so I feel like the fact that I'm really into Tailwind says something about it, I hope.
Yeah.
I used some CSS kind of frameworks before Tailwind, mostly Bootstrap. As we mentioned at the outset, I'm a terrible front-end developer, an even worse designer. So it's pretty bad. And when I used Bootstrap, it was like, okay, great. Like I can just use these styles. And then of course I'm working on a team and it's like, oh, we can't use those styles. Like we have our own styles. And I'm like, shit. All right. Oops. So I'm writing vanilla CSS. And then of course I was introduced to Sass and Less. And so I start writing these frameworks and then compile the CSS. And basically for about 5 years, I hated CSS more than any other programming language just because I felt like it was the least clean and maintainable thing out there. Like it was just so hard. There's all these different patterns, right? Like BM to try to keep it all nice and organized, and it just never worked. The best success that I've had has been with Tailwind for two reasons. Number one, it's not really a framework in the sense that Bootstrap's a framework because it doesn't tell you what styles to use, right? It's a utility classes thing. And so I almost look at it as a competitor to something like BEM. It's a competitor to a convention for how you're going to write CSS. And I think the idea of just owning up to the fact that, hey, basically every element is its own special thing. That's just how it kind of works out in the end. Yeah, there's some shared stuff, but for the most part, it's all edge. It's edge cases all the fucking way down. That's why CSS is so hard. And I think Tailwind kind of owns up to that. And so it ends up being a good kind of philosophy for structuring things.
Because scope and the cascade is hard to play against. And we've had all of these different ways to try to scope, to deal with the cascade. And talked about, like you mentioned, WASM or whatever else, like modules being scoped, and that solves a bunch of things. But in the interim, I do think that like Tailwind, to a degree, can help you scope or override in context. And I like that. The naming is solved because maybe you don't totally agree with it, but come up with a better one. Oh, you haven't? That's why it's fucking popular.
Yeah.
You know? And Robbie said this a couple of times, which I think is a really good point, which is the Tailwind docs are so good, they help you be better at CSS.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like
teach
nice
me new
examples.
CSS all the time.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, this is a great system for someone who isn't like an expert in CSS and who's trying to like push things on like CodePen or whatever else. And, you know, like folks on Twitter, like Adam Argyle and Jay and Chris Coyer, you know, for years or whatever else, doing cool shit in it, right? And showing you a different pattern and pushing the boundaries. And that's great, but that's not most people's job and primary job. So for making CRUD apps and some cool animations, Tailwind is awesome.
There are abstractions that just hide what's going on underneath, and then there are abstractions that make it easier to do what's going on underneath. And I think Tailwind is one of the few examples of an abstraction that makes it easier to do what's going on underneath, but doesn't hide it. You know, you as a developer are growing and learning as you use it, and that's not the case for all abstractions. Again, why I'm always so hesitant to add them to my stack.
That's true, because like jQuery was really great to help you with DOM manipulation across browsers, but there were some abstractions there to make it magical and consistent across that weren't completely transparent, of course, unless you dug into the source.
Yeah, which is true with all JavaScript frameworks, but
Well, fine. Moving on, Robert.
Git rebase or Git merge?
Oh, this is a good one because Primogen recently released his Git course on Boot.dev.
Wait, who?
Who
just
is
kidding.
I don't know
this?
if you've heard of this guy. He's like,
What does it
I don't
sound
know.
like when he's streaming? Is it kind of like this?
it's kind of like that, you know, really small time guy.
Yeah, very nice fellow. So I only make fun of those that I like. Notice I never make fun of Robbie.
That's true. No, you make fun of, well, I don't know. Maybe
I make
not
fun
make
of
fun.
everybody.
You don't
so
do
that's true. I don't leave a lot of people out.
But
So no, I don't. Well, if I was to do an impression of Robbie, it would be like, I'm really excited right now. I like this whiskey. Ember
Yeah.
is the best.
I don't have any space in my brain for emotions. I only have code in there. So
And
That checks out.
yeah. And Mario Kart. Wagner's are just like that, you know. It's like,
man, yeah,
It's
we
rough
only
out
ship.
here.
Yeah,
some Wagners made it out west, some stuck around Virginia. I don't know.
there's Wagners everywhere. I feel like my first and last name are like one of the most common of both. Because like Robert is always like the most common like male name, and then Wagner's got to be pretty high on the like last names.
What generation though? Because like, is it since the actor or prior to the actor?
Well, the specific combination I'm unsure, but Robert on its own has been number one since like 1920 or something. Like,
Bobby.
Really, number one. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
it may be in the top 5 now, like not as popular, but
Yeah.
because we were looking up baby names for our son like a couple years back, and it was just like, what's the most popular one? You know, all these times like Robert. Like, yeah, we're definitely not gonna do.
And then it's like shit like Braden and Weldon and like whatever.
I don't think those are no, they're not in the top 5. Like those
don't
went
know.
up a lot, but
Yeah. I was making jokes anyway.
yeah.
You weren't in. So you didn't answer the question though, Lane.
Yeah. So anyways, Primogen, great guy. He made a course. He made 2 courses on Git that we released on Boot.dev. And I helped edit those courses, produce them, get them published. And I was a merge guy before these courses. Not for any particular reason, just because the few times that I'd rebased, it was hard. It was hard and things happened and it scared me. And it put me in this weird state where I'm like, rebasing, right? Like the command finished and I'm still in this rebasing state. It's like, don't merge when you're in that rebasing, just like
Yeah.
stuff, right? And I've always worked at smaller companies where, frankly, you know, being a Git guru is not as important because
Yeah.
there's just not that many developers working on the same project. And you can kind of just get away with commit, push, pull, like your very basic stuff. I never really was forced to learn advanced Git stuff. So anyways, I took that course and taught me a bunch of stuff, and I started rebasing, and a couple of my problems went away when I started rebasing.
Nice.
In particular, we do a lot of content on Boot.dev, obviously, and we store it in Git, and we use the Git history to show like when a lesson was last updated, and merge commits were kind of fucking that number up.
Oh,
And so by removing merge commits, basically solve a lot of problems. And so like my take is like it actually doesn't matter that much most of the time, but I do prefer rebasing now.
So I did learn through larger teams, larger companies, and senior developers. Sorry.
Yeah. Do they have a professional engineering license?
I think so. I honestly think so. I think it's like, why are you appropriating a title it's just made up out of nowhere? Like, who decided it was engineer? What are you engineering? Software? I mean, I guess, but like, maybe we do need to legitimize it, and a bunch of other thoughts and questions around that one. But anyway, yeah, I had to get some GetFu because it wasn't a large org with lots of people and also seniors that would like tell me to RTFM and figure it out and do it right and things like that. And so you learn about like rebasing, and I actually, every time I pull master into a branch, I do it through a rebase.
You mean main, right?
Yeah, and yeah, sorry. That's true.
Got to keep these Gen Vs in line here.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. I'm old. I'm almost
unbelievable.
I'm almost like I'm coming up on like half a century. What do you want from me? Oh, cherry picking, super powerful, super fun. You know, doing that like through rebases and stuff too is kind of fun. So I don't know what my point was, but yeah, learn the hard way. I think even if you don't use your tool in that way, learning how your tool works and what your options are if you get fucked is kind of nice. Yeah. Thanks, Prime.
And being consistent with your team is important.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, too, what is everybody doing? Just follow that. Don't be an asshole who shows up.
If someone merges main into their branch, but then you like squashed and merged a thing into main, you're all fucked.
Yeah.
So
don't do that. Yeah, be a good citizen. That's generally my, like, I have an opinion, but if I come into a team that's doing something different, follow them. Like, they have some reasons, or at least like the consistency is important. So
that bit on master and main, I just have kind of a funny anecdote. So we shipped this course, and the way Prime gave it to me was to have students start out on master because that's the default for Git. Now, this is a very common misunderstanding. The default for Git is still master.
Right.
The default for GitHub is main. So anyways, we shipped the course with master, and then what happens is some way through the course, we introduce you to GitHub, and at that point, we actually have you switch. And we kind of explain the history and be like, hey, just so you know, like, you know, the default on Git is master, the default on GitHub is main. So many comments on that first lesson of like, this is wrong, the default's been changed to main, to the point where we had to add a note. It's like, we know that GitHub changed to main. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, be patient.
We
Slow
still
your
get
horses.
comments, even with the note.
Slow your high horse, okay? I know
we still get them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. People don't read the note. They're just like,
I make these mistakes a lot.
In fact, I'm going
to
to go comment right now.
It's kind of like you saying the church, right? It's like what you're used to for X amount of your life. It's like, you know, my development career has been master for like a pretty long time. As long as I've been doing Git, it was master, of course. And
all the kids these days change the meanings of everything.
And, I intend to be better, but sometimes I'm not going to get your pronouns right.
Yeah. Trying matters.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I can commit to is to do better. What I want to know, though, if I'm trying to become better at the back end, computer science fundamentals, should I go to Boot.dev or QVault?
You should go to Boot.dev. I think if you go to QVault, it
redirects. Yeah, except for some of the blog entries. Those end up being like some of your stuff on Medium.
There's just too many for me to keep track.
No shit. Have you done this route? You should find him on Medium and see how many articles are there over like the last 4 years or so.
Is it a lot?
It's a lot. We should be embarrassed with how little content.
Would you like to write some for us?
I was just saying, like,
there's a lot of bad ones in there. This is like something I'm a big believer in. If you're at all interested, like I've always liked to write, but reality is I was a really bad writer for a long time. But you write 300 articles and you let people roast you on Reddit and Hacker News, you'll get good eventually.
You're a brave soul. Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff that I'd read Hacker News, posting on Hacker News, like an actual main post. Yeah, that shit. That's
I had a few of them go big early on. That's actually why I got excited about it. I remember specifically I wrote one on elliptic curves because I was interested in how elliptic curves work for cryptography, and it did really well. I can't remember if it was
smart
Hacker
flex
News or
us.
somewhere else.
Don't smart flex us. I don't know what a fucking elliptic curve is. I guess I'll have to read that.
It's
article.
like a treadmill, but it has the arms.
Oh, is it like the gazelle? Is it like the gazelle? What's this guy named? Tony something?
Oh,
he was selling
who was
you the
that guy?
gazelle.
I do remember that.
Yeah, with the long hair,
Elliptical. Damn it.
elliptical. Oh, those are different things. Jokes are the only thing I'm good at. But anyway, so I'm glad we solved that. Do you want to move on from hot takes, Robbie? I don't know.
Oh yeah, we probably should.
Yeah, because we have some other tech things.
This one will
and
be
there's-
quick. We should say.
Okay.
What do you think about nested ternaries?
Okay.
Generally, I've always been against them, and I've yet to see a place where I felt like they were really readable in the wild. That said, I saw someone like format one correctly, where like it was all, I don't know, the spacing and everything and the indentation was all done in such a way that it was fairly easy to read. My formatter doesn't do that by default, so
no.
Don't fucking do it in my code base. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'd rather
Yeah.
just not.
Yeah, I mean, if else and switch statements exist because they look nice.
Yeah, before we had formatters, though. So on that, because I can remember like seeing some at times that I thought were like really clever. I'm like, there's a lot going on here, but oh wow, I can actually kind of read through that. And this was more like Sublime Text, whatever, back in the day before we had format on save and we agree on editor configs and some other stuff. Like you would see some of that and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess you're clever. Good for you. Approved. But in general, no, you don't see that, and especially not anymore.
It's hard to think about because I have to go, okay, wait, that's the one that is when it's true, and then I go to the next one. Okay, and that's the one when it's false. It's just harder to think about. I don't know. I'm a guard clause person myself. I'm a Go programmer. You probably could have predicted that.
Yeah. So you don't mind TypeScript then with some guards and things of that nature. There is some overlap there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Big fan of TypeScript over JavaScript. That's for sure.
That's fair.
This just in, Whiskey.fund is now open for all your merch needs.
That's right, Robbie. We're hearing reports of hats, sweaters, and t-shirts, as well as a link to join our Discord server.
What's a Discord server?
Just read the prompter, man.
Hit subscribe, leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, and tell your friends about our broadcast.
It really does help us reach more people and keeps the show growing.
All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
This is a question that I'm not going to take full credit for because I saw
This question has a lot of words to it.
It has a lot of words, but just think about it. Okay. So there's a ton of learning material online, and I think it's addressing like some of the shortcomings and high cost of boot camps. You have one of these platforms, but it skews more to the back end, which is great because that's a good way to like focus on that content versus become a React developer, yada, yada, yada. But there's like a lot of platforms, resources, tooling, whatever else to make things easier for folks trying to come into programming and come into web development or whatever kind of development. What do you think are some of the best platforms? And maybe it is your own. I don't know because I don't have a free code yet to go deeper, but
I just made you one. I could read it out, but it's like 28 characters long.
oh, okay. Yeah,
So I'll probably have to paste it somewhere.
Yeah, maybe you want to do that. Or read it out and see who's paying attention because as Ken Wheeler can say, if you say your own phone number, you're going to get text messages from random people, included me. But so, yeah, like, okay, I'm an experienced developer. I've been in technology and the web for 20 plus years in various, you can say like various areas of that though, because I started out as like a webmaster, web designer. But people who are further in their career, I don't know that anything is like, maybe it's a marketing thing or whatever else. Like what is going to provide them with like better tooling and better learning? Is it the same platforms, do you think? Or is there something else that just needs to be geared towards?
Let's be clear.
Yes.
Boot.dev is the best place.
Okay.
Just kidding.
And let's just say you're being objective and not thinking about like feeding your children or whatever else. But I don't even know if you have kids actually. But you're a Mormon. You're a former Mormon. You probably have 6. Anyway.
I've got 2 and a third on the way, but
Fair enough.
they are hungry.
You're a big guy, so that's fine. That tracks.
You're not wrong. Okay, so a few things. First of all, I just pasted your codes in the chat, so you can't complain anymore about me not getting you the codes. There's 2 of them there. It's a year. It's a year on the platform.
If I can't do it in a year, I don't deserve it. Okay?
True. That's true. Okay, so what are the best platforms? I like to break things down a few different ways. So there's like, if you're trying to get into programming, you can go to college. That's one way. You can go to a boot camp. That's one way. And then you could learn online. That's like the third way. And there's, I'm sure there's like some other ways. Like maybe somebody's nice enough to teach you in person. But like those are the 3 main ways. And the way I think about it is like, in my opinion, first of all, like traditional education, there's a lot of problems there. I won't get into all of them, but it's not, we could spend many podcasts just talking about all of the issues with student loans and with a whole generation that I think expected something out of college that was different than what necessarily is the actual life-changing result. But my basic take is college is still a good way to get into programming if you're 18, and specifically if you can do it without going into massive debt, right? So like I went to a local community college, got a CS degree in 4 years and got out, and like I would do it the same way again. I had a scholarship. I was able to go for very cheap.
You didn't get into BYU.
College, got it wasn't BYU.
You didn't get into BYU. No, I think that's a very valid point in terms of college because like, okay, even for, I can remember like The Economist or whatever, they have like these annual things and it'll talk about like, if you're going to get an MBA, there's only like a handful or so of schools that give you an actual ROI on that. And that kind of goes across the board for many disciplines. Okay, if you're going to go to MIT or Stanford, maybe that matters for computer science, for some other things. But if in general...
I feel like it doesn't matter, though. I feel like none of them matter, with the exception of, like, if the place you're interviewing, if that guy went to MIT, he might have some bias towards hiring you, versus, like... I feel like everywhere has pretty good programs. Not everywhere.
Yeah,
like,
no.
But you don't have to go to the top 3 places to be, like, viewed as a great engineer.
If you're in an interview pool and whatever else, I think things are somewhat equalized. I think folks coming out of those schools have the opportunity to build businesses before they graduate and have a platform and like
that's true
connections right away. So that's something else altogether. I'm not even talking about the quality of the program. I think if, you know, someone to help you read the book and get the fundamentals down, that can happen. Like you can have great teachers anywhere.
So I didn't go Ivy League. I went to like the 7th best school in Utah, which is like, right? Like it's
fine though, right? Like,
but my take is basically, yeah, if you go Ivy League, you're going for not the education because
for the connections.
The undergraduate requirements are basically the same everywhere. You're going to meet some incredible people there. And a big factor to me would be like our mommy and daddy funding it for you, right? Like had I been accepted to Stanford, I wouldn't have gone. I'm too fucking cheap. Like my mom and dad didn't pay for my college. I got like a state scholarship.
Yeah, good
and
for you.
I put myself through and I worked at a restaurant and like I'd do it the same way again unless my parents were offering to put me through, in which case, like, sure, I'd try to go to Stanford if I was accepted. But
if anything, everything costs the same, then sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, my take is basically, like, it's a really good option if you're 18, if you're super young and you're going for the first time. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Like, I'm not trying to convince anyone with Boot.dev that they should be turning down their college acceptance letters and doing this, like, year-long thing online. We're definitely speaking more to kind of your 25 to 35-year-old age group where they're working full-time and they're trying to figure out how they can get into tech in some way, specifically like back-end development without going into debt. And so that's why I put boot camps in a different class of thing. And I'm going to be most critical about boot camps here. I named Boot.dev when we rebranded, partly tongue-in-cheek, because Boot.dev's not a boot camp. Basically, my critique is that boot camps, like, had I gone to a boot camp as an adult, it would have been more expensive than college was for me. Again, because I went to a community college and because I had this scholarship, boot camps tend to run in like the 10 to 15 grand range, depending on where you go, and which I don't think is unfair. Like, you're getting time with an instructor in person. Like, you have to pay for that labor cost, but it is expensive. But the unfortunate thing is they're only 3 to 6 to 9 months long, and you don't get credentialed at the end with
Yeah.
a degree, which I would argue is like the biggest downside of something like Boot.dev is that, it's at the end of the day, you get certificates saying that you did a thing, but it's not what
Accredited
some
in any way.
companies want, which is
We
this
need to
special
start
thing.
a union, and we need to start an association and get people accredited through you as
Specifically
software
through me. It would
developers
be great if
or
those
whatever
dues went
else. Right?
directly to
Yeah,
my
no.
bank account. Yeah.
Well,
I'll write
so-
the Ember.js course, and we'll get it going.
Yeah, go for it. Bring people back. We'll see how much that one goes for. I mean, hey, one point about, to me, it always felt like that boot camps, part of their deal was you were paying for the guaranteed job at the end. Like they would make these guarantees, like 90% of our we get placed and all of that, and they have in-house
Yeah, some
like
of them.
recruiting agencies
Some of
and
them,
everything
yeah.
else.
That's-
I think that's changed quite a bit lately over the last couple of years, because it's no longer like, yeah, we need to pump them out because there's so much demand. Now it's kind of the inverse. There's like deep pools of plenty of skilled people, and you need to be able to do some pretty weird, crazy shit to get jobs these days sometimes. So I kind of get that. But I do think that like that was part of what they were selling, is like, yes, you can go learn online, you can buy a Udemy course or, whatever, few plural site or whatever you want. You can go through that, but at the end of the day, you're kind of still on your own. Like, yeah, they might help you put a resume together. That's kind of like the extent of it. If you pay us $15,000 in 6 months, we'll have you a job that pays way more than what you're doing now. And I think that was a promise.
That's compelling. Like
It is
If someone
compelling.
has those connections and can guarantee that, go to that boot camp. I don't think anyone has that anymore, but that was a thing, I don't know, 5 years ago or a while
that
back.
was like a
I remember
Lambda
that.
School Bloom Tech thing. It was like, we don't charge you until you get a job, right?
Yeah. There was
Um,
like a couple of those that did that, but
The way they subsidize that is the actual cost of that one specifically. It was like closer to $40,000 or $50,000 if you get a job.
oh, I remember that
Which
one.
is
Yeah.
That's okay, I guess, if you really want that security. But man, when you're only making $80K a year, paying
Yeah.
$50K back over a couple of years is
I was going to say it was a whole
tough.
thing where it was essentially a loan that got forwarded out that you would pay like a lot of interest on. So, but my original question was still, we're not talking about noobs. We're talking about, it's been 10 years, been 15 years. I'm always trying to learn something new or something old.
Wouldn't you be
sometimes.
a noob in that new thing, though?
I guess so. I guess it's like, and I guess you can like enroll and skip past some stuff or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose there's that. But I always like feel like many of them, and I'll let you know, Lane, now, that like they only take you so far, right? Like, and so, okay.
You want the advanced content.
Yeah, I want the advanced content to a bit. I feel like there's so many like things that I can skip through because syntax can be picked up, pretty easily through doing similar things in a different paradigm or whatever else. So I think that's a thing that I was kind of miss. It's like, I did the Rails getting started thing recently just because I was like, oh yeah, this is a thing I never did. I was at like Django and some other stuff, and obviously tons of front end or whatever. And I never spun up a Rails app. What's that like? So I did their getting started. And it's cool, but it also felt a lot like, because I did Ember too back in the day with Robbie. And I was like, oh yeah, I can see where Ember was based on this because it's like a lot of the same shit. So I kind of know.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really quick.
Sorry, what's the question, so I can make sure I actually address the question this time?
Okay. What do you think is being done to help experienced developers become better and have better tooling in these areas of like learning? I've been doing this a while, but I want to level up. And yes, experience is one great way to do that. But my day job doesn't always put me in that position. And I don't want to change jobs to get that opportunity. So I'm looking to learn something. Now what?
It's a big question, and so this is going to sound like I'm slightly dodging the question. I'm not. It's just like there's a lot of stuff to say.
The answer could be, I don't know. It's just something that came of mind. Well, actually, I saw a posting about
it's
that.
It's just going to take an hour.
And then was like, this is a good time to ask this question. That's all I felt.
If you're an experienced developer with 10 years of experience, the reality is, I think you're going to have a fairly easy time jumping into almost anything if the hurdle is mostly syntax. And if you're having a hard time, I don't know what to tell you other than I probably don't want to hire you.
You don't want to hire me. I'm going to let you know. Don't worry about that. You don't want to hire me. Unless you have an elliptical
boring.
Or something, or I don't know.
It's like a little elliptical.
If you need an
involved.
elliptical assembled, Chuck's got you.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm a carpenter.
Yeah.
We can build things. I've got tools.
So the way I like to think about it is there's a lot of concepts in programming that are solved with different technologies. And this is something that's been tough building Boot.dev, is that I'm really hard-nosed about I want to have courses that teach concepts, and we happen to teach them with specific technologies, right? So, for example, we have an object-oriented programming course. It's in Python now. I'd love to have it in basically every language, because the conceptual progression of the course is not about teaching syntax. And this is something that's really hard, I think, for a lot of people getting into programming for the first time, because the assumption is, oh, you learn Python and now you're a Python programmer. And you can do all the Python things. And if you want to be a Go programmer, now you learn Go. Check that off the box. I like to think about it completely inverted, which is you should learn the concepts, things like OOP, FP, data structures, algorithms, web servers, command line tools. Like, you should learn these things from a conceptual level. And it's actually not very hard to change the syntax that you use to do those things, which is one of the bigger struggles of building Boot.dev, is that we have to like educate on that, because most boot camps and a lot of online resources kind of cater to the other way of thinking, which is like, no, you learn React and then like you're a React dev.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
I
And
hate,
you never
like,
learn JavaScript, just React.
Exactly. I mean, it's fine if you like React. I have no problem with that. If you, whatever your favorite sports team is or whatever, but it does feel like almost religious in a way of how you align yourself with a technology. And I think that's like the fallacy behind it. I actually think you answered my question by saying, well, we invert the concept and abstract away from what is the syntax in the language and how you accomplish it in this, and want to teach someone the concept, and then say you can apply this same concept now to this next thing once you understand the syntactical, variances there, and then just keep going. I actually think you answered that question for me. As soon as you hit that note, I was like, yes, that feels right.
Good.
So
Good, because that's where I was eventually going to circle back to. It's finally coming to fruition on Boot.dev, because we've always had like this backend developer track that's like 23 courses that, again, are broken down kind of by the conceptual learnings at each step. But the first half was always like CS fundamentals, and the second half was like a focus on backend development. And it's always been Python for the first half, Go for the second half. And now we're finally getting to this point where we're expanding the backend part from just Go to TypeScript. And holy shit, it's really easy. And this is going to scare a lot of people. It's really easy to do with AI. Like, when we write our Go courses to teach all these concepts, and then we feed the LLM the whole fucking thing in Go, and we say, give me the equivalent lesson in TypeScript, guess what it can do really well? Like, it can give you the TypeScript.
is it OpenAI or Anthropic? Which one's better?
We've been testing both extensively.
Yeah.
So far, OpenAI, to the dismay of many developers, is winning that race.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Claude is just so more like polite and visually appealing to me, and I find myself drawn to it. So
yeah, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of ill will that OpenAI garnered throughout the course of a year. That Anthropic came in, they're kind of the underdog, but I guess my point is that doesn't mean those things aren't worth learning. They definitely are. And by the way, it's like wrong all the time. This is not an automated process. It's maybe sped us up by like 20%.
But it tells you it's right. It's like, this is what you want. 100%.
And as soon as you correct it, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you knew to correct me.
Yeah, we're using it as much as we possibly can, but I haven't been able to fire anyone over it yet. So I don't know. But yeah, that's the vision, is like you should be able to learn these fundamental concepts, and then it's not really a problem. You can take a quick course on the Go programming language, which we do have those courses that just gets you up to speed on the syntax. They're quick. If you're a senior developer, our Go course takes maybe a week, takes a few hours. And then you feel pretty comfortable, you build a few things, and you're off to the races. So I wish more programmers in our industry. This is a kind of I guess to really zoom out, kind of one of the missions of Boot.dev is I just wish more of us were just fucking good at our jobs. I wish more of us could just look at a problem and be like, man, this should be solved in the front end or the back end or in the database with a specific technology with specific piece of infrastructure, and we're not scared to go there because we've put ourselves in these little boxes of I'm a React developer or I'm a Vue developer. It's like, no, you're a developer. And if there's a tool that works, you can figure it out in just a couple days. That's kind of what I hope more people get that way.
We've taught people wrong. It's not. Yeah. React the Vue layer. Did either of you listen to Tomorrow FM with the HH on it from the other day?
I did.
Yesterday, the day before, or whatever?
I did.
Right? Like, I think he made such a great point there. And he has been a large influencer of my wallet lately, unfortunately. But kids these days don't know how to set up a web server and expose it to the internet. Literally, like this very basic thing, which felt like such power when I was able to do that for the first time. Like, you know, I started out like using Photoshop and then like hacking together like gaming machines and shit and like whatever. And just being able to do that, I never worried about like exposing myself to something because I'm like, nobody cares about my little server on the internet. But like so many people probably make six figures doing a job, and not to say their job isn't valuable by any means, you know, like you're delivering value to your users and all of that stuff. But understanding the fundamentals of your tools, I think, is important in growing. And I've been a manager and engineering leadership, software leadership for a very long time as well. And the question you get all the time is like, how do I go to the next level, or how do I become senior? And it's like, well, it's very complicated. It's not that like you learn these 3 concepts or you ship 16 things this quarter or whatever else. It takes experience. It takes me seeing that you know how to find some answers and you know like how things work. And that's why you're able to kind of get there. And it's hard to quantify that though, to a degree. And it's a very interesting place that we're in, that like so many folks, so many grown adults who utilize this, like don't know the fundamentals of their tools.
To a degree, I think it's that the buck can stop with you. Like your team can come to you, and it doesn't mean you need to be able to, you know, figure out how to get to Mars, but like if this is a solved problem that the world knows how to do, you know how to do it, or at least you know how to figure it out. That's like, to me, what a senior engineer is like, is,
100%.
Okay, if I look at the internet and I can see that 40% of websites do X, can you at least figure out how to do it in a week? Whereas, you know, a junior engineer might not be able to do that. They might need to be able to go to that senior person and get that direction. I think becoming senior is this, it's experience. It is an understanding of a lot of fundamental concepts. It's a mixture of things, but it's like, can you just do the thing that other people have figured out how to do already, right? Yeah. And you can look up and implement. And that's kind of how I look at it.
It's still a hard thing to put into like HR documentation, but I think like you're spot on in general, like kind of what it means. Yeah, like you can find the answers. You understand enough to help figure that out.
It sneaks up on you. I remember like when I first thought I was a senior engineer of like, wait, I can just do this stuff. I don't need to go ask anyone. Like, but until then, your workflow is so very regimented of like, try to do a thing, fail at it, go ask my senior like how to do it. And then like just kind of overnight, you're just like, wait, I don't need to do that anymore. There's no like, there's no checklist. It's just like, you just figure it out.
That's it. That's your career ladder. Figure it out.
And that's how promotions work too, unfortunately. There's no checklist. It's, do we all think you're at that or not? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
and do we like you? That's
that's
very
that's important,
underrated.
Which is usually no, so.
Yeah.
I think it's better though than the old school of like, do we feel threatened if you left? I guess you're senior now.
Well, that was a complex time of like
neckbeards.
Just making really
Funyuns.
shitty code that was not senior code, but like, oh my God, I don't know what this does.
I don't
so
know.
You got to
like,
stay here.
I can remember like having people where it was like, oh, if Joey doesn't stay, we can't deploy. I don't know what to, you know what I mean? Like,
God.
This
Joey
is
had
a
it made.
problem of what's going on, and
he
like
wrote 5,000 lines of bash.
exactly,
now we don't know how to
and we're
deploy
like,
anymore.
nobody knows how to do that shit, and it's all on-prem and whatever else. And this definitely was within the last 15 years. So, So I have an interesting question. Are you a big fan of Bam Margera or like CKY or Jackass was later in his career?
Oh, Jackass,
whatever
yeah,
else.
okay.
Where is this going?
Bam Margera. Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about at least now.
You got like the Bam Margera beard, and I can't get it out of my head. It was like, this is a choice this person made, and they must have seen it somewhere and was like, this is what I want to do to my face. And that guy lived in Pennsylvania and drove a Lambo. Like, seems good.
He did have a Lambo.
Yeah. He's interesting.
He must have been a PHP developer.
He would have been if he was a developer. Like he's a former professional skater, and obviously CKY was what the videos were before he became part of Jackass. So you are a productive individual before 30, making humans and companies and all this stuff. I was like, well, I guess my career started in that time, but my early 20s were very hazy and full of lots of like indecision and indirection in my life.
Had you ever heard of combinatorics in your 20s?
No, he likes to bring this up because this is like a thing where I finally like hit a computer sciencey like problem in an app I was working on with a company I was helping build and a team I was helping build. And he's just mad because I didn't hire him initially for that. But anyway, we became friends and it worked out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like this thing where I was like, I need to take like 3 different open options and come up with every combination. And then it's like combinatorics. And then I'm writing an Ember app and I look up and he's the maintainer of Ember combinatorics. So I was like, well, this is good. So you know about this? And yeah, got his help there. So I learned about combinatorics. I would have been in my early 30s, I guess, then. I'm 72. Did you know this?
Jesus Christ. You look incredible.
Well, it's all the whiskey.
I mean, he's really not lying by that much, honestly.
Like, if you do the math from my age to 72, it's less than I wish it was.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
Oh, God.
Could you be my parent? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Kentucky, so yeah, I definitely could be your dad. So in that sense,
the fun part is
you could be my Mississippi parent.
Yeah.
It's
my wife's parents are like 2 or 3 years older than Chuck, so yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's funny. I knew his mother-in-law back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Okay.
No, that's weird. And this is about the time when Robbie cuts me off.
Yeah, I mean, we have been over time for 8 minutes, but I was just letting it go.
You guys don't record long enough. There's so much to say.
Oh, I know.
That's how we keep them coming back, though. You know, like we can't squeeze it on. No,
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we did a 2-hour format? How hammered we would be? Like this is not.
Well, we
good.
did
like,
2 hours with Prime that
do I
one
keep
time.
the bottle and then we do an episode 2 later?
No, can you
Absolutely.
send it back to me? It'd be fine. Like just wrap it up. In
so
some
Chuck
foil
can drink
and
it, and then we'll send you some more.
I was gonna say, like, look where I'm at. Yeah, we could do a little like live happy hour and just talk and bullshit. We don't even have to record. That might be a fun thing. We've been talking about doing that for a little while, like doing additional content. So maybe we just do like a live happy hour.
I don't know how the internet works or streaming and whatever kids do these days.
I guess you need that Boot.dev code. Yeah, and then you can figure out, does it teach you how to write a DNS server and reverse proxy Nginx?
Have you heard of Caddy?
I haven't. No, is that a
That's
Python
when
package
you're
that makes it
golfing, right?
easier?
That is when you're golfing. It's basically an Nginx alternative. I mean, that's probably not quite fair to say. There's a bunch of differences, but Caddy is written in Go. I actually know the maintainer. His name's Matt Holt. He's awesome. But it's fantastic. It's awesome. So we have a course called Learn Web Servers where you learn to build a web server.
Oh, cool. I'm jumping on that because I have a home lab that is very not well maintained.
Well, fair enough. Like I mentioned before, we're trying to be concepts first. So it's like, okay, build a REST API. REST, Carson Gross is like, rolling over in his not grave because he's not dead. But
No.
but
He's
like a
old,
JSON
but
API.
geez.
Yeah, so it's build a JSON API, but like, just with the standard library, you're writing actual SQL, that kind of stuff. So like very fundamentals first. The Caddy server comes a little later when we teach about Docker because you need a proxy. And so we show you kind of how to spin up like a Caddy server in Docker. But basically my philosophy is every time we like teach a new concept, we try to do it like really bare bones. Like when you just learn SQL, you just learn SQL, right? And then you learn web servers and then you use SQL and try to go a level deeper than I think not to shit on like all the other courses, because I think there's a lot of awesome courses out there. There really are. I don't mean that facetiously, but to try to go just a little bit deeper on everything so that when you actually do finish, you feel a lot more confident, because I think that's been one of the biggest
sleepy.
problems.
In my experience, I usually feel a little sleepy after I finish.
Oh God. Oh, I thought you were talking about sleepy in courses, but now then I know what you're saying. So
Yeah, that's a whole different euphemism. But yeah, it's a little bit more time to get to your destination, which is like supposedly to become a developer, to become a better developer.
Yeah.
And when you get there, actually be confident that you understand what's going on, rather than kind of what I've seen a lot over the last 8 years, which is like you kind of get to the end and you start searching for a job and you're like, holy shit, I don't know fuck about shit. And that's not fun. So that's kind of what we're trying to address.
No, it's good. I think that's like a good end goal that you're shooting for, of like, oh, I've seen and or heard these experiences, and at this point, not sure what's actually applicable. I wonder how much of that too would help someone pivoting into like cybersecurity or other things, because I think understanding programming and how the hardware all works as far as the internet would like be great leverage to some of those other directions as well. I don't know if you have points there. I know we're way over, Robbie, so we don't have to dig way into that. But
yeah,
that's
the way
like,
the hardware works is you plug the cords together and it works.
If you unplug them, they don't
And then
work.
you SSH into the cloud, and then I don't know why you care about cords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most places, SSH password is the default, so you just go wherever you want.
Well, what does Guillermo recommend? What button in Vercel do I pick for that?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We don't SSH here. We navigate in the browser and log in with Google.
Oh, you only SSH when you want to buy coffee, is what I understand. Which is funny, because that was another thing when DHH was talking about TUIs and like how airlines still use the TUIs and all that kind of stuff. And in another life, I worked for an airline and eventually worked at like the ticketing counter and stuff and used those things, which were fucking batshit insane. Like all of the key combinations to do things. Like there was no mouse. It was like a fucking computer from 1982.
When I was at the bank,
like,
it was an asinine like amount of key combinations that you just memorized. And you're making like barely more than minimum wage. And they've got this, like, they don't even give you a cheat sheet. You just like talk to the teller next to you. They're like, yeah, this system was built in 1991. I hope you know how to navigate it.
Robbie was one, and you weren't born yet.
Lane
Like,
wasn't
what
born
the
yet.
fuck? I was gonna say, yeah, that stuff is insane. At least I got free flights. I don't know what the hell you got out of it, but
I didn't
Well,
get no. I
you
worked
didn't
at
get
a bank
free
for a year and
banks.
left. Yeah.
free money. No.
Well,
It
something
paid
you
for my undergraduate from a small community college, 7th best in Utah. Shout out.
that's not nothing.
Hashtag not BYU.
So before we end here, if you were not in tech, what career would you choose? And this could be like, if you want to magically gain a skill to do a thing, just like what sounds fun? Like what's your dream thing outside of tech?
I think I'd like to be an author. I probably wouldn't make it because
No. You get to make it. You get to pick the thing.
I get
If
to
you weren't in
make it?
tech, what
Definitely an
career?
author. Yeah.
It's like whatever.
Well, what kind of author? Children's books? Those are easy. Like,
No,
Jimmy Fallon wrote one of those.
Look, if I ever truly make it in programming, which I'm a fairly ambitious person, which means like if I could get to the point somewhere in the next, I don't know, decade or something where like I wouldn't have to work anymore, unlikely that happens. But if it did, I think my goal would be to write some high fantasy that is like paradigm shifting in a way, which is like a really egotistical and prideful thing to say. But I think like I'm a huge fan of Tolkien, love the Legendarium. There's a bunch of stuff there. Can't believe he died before, really giving us some more answers. But there should be a new way to write fiction. Or I should say, I would like there to be a new genre in which people could write fiction. Because we've been kind of stuck with our, existing genres. And Tolkien really created fantasy in the way that it exists now. And nobody's been able to do that. I'm not saying that I could do that, but if you're giving me the talent, if you're giving me the skill, that's what I'd like to
creating a whole new universe. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So do you like Rings of Power?
No.
Okay. I figured that might be the answer.
Yeah, too passionate. He's not going to love it. Like, no way.
Yeah.
I watched it, and I've been watching the new season as well. Somehow, the new season has been worse than the old one, which is incredible. I didn't think they
started the new season.
Oh gosh.
I legitimately went into season 2 thinking it's going to be better than season 1.
Well, didn't they get a whole new like producer, director, like everybody? Or am I wrong on that? I thought I'd heard they got like all new everybody, but maybe not.
I haven't paid enough attention. It's very possible. I think there's a couple twists that I'm looking at that I'm hoping pan out, because I think that'd be kind of cool. I'm not convinced that they will, but it's been an embarrassing way to spend that amount of money.
I don't think you're wrong, because like I'm not a purist. I like Tolkien, but I'm not like it has to be exactly that way. So I'm like whatever. But also I wasn't like when I finish an episode, I'm not like, oh my God, I got to watch the next one, you know? So it's not like a great show, but it's not a bad show. It's just like, it's mediocre. And it's just like, yeah, for that much money, it should be phenomenal. Like Apple TV spends so much money on all their shows and all of them are good. Maybe they know what they're doing. If
Netflix had gotten the rights, I believe it would be, 50 to 75% better than what it is. I don't know why Amazon's so bad at these things. I
don't either.
Yeah. The fundamental problem, all right, gonna get Tolkien nerdy for a second. I know we're like a billion minutes over, but I'm unemployed, so
I'll hard stop you in 7 minutes.
That makes 2 of us.
Before that, you can go do whatever you want.
The source material they're working with, theoretically, they don't I actually don't understand the licensing, but supposedly they don't even have the license to like everything they need to do what they want, which is already
very
a
small.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have like waited until you had everything.
Yeah.
Or like maybe spent less money on ridiculous settings and costumes and gotten that source material. But whatever. They're missing some licensing. That said, even if they had everything, which they don't, you're working with a timeline that's huge and trying to tell a story over the course of like a realistic amount of time, like 6 months or something, in like, the world of the show. And so they're forced to kind of condense all of these events that supposedly happened over like a millennia into a very short amount of time. And so that, just the result of that is making up a bunch of stuff, lots of plot devices. And the sad thing is that we knew that was going to happen. And that's like just a disappointment, but like, it's going to happen. And then somehow they fucked up everything on top of that, which is just, that's the one that like really hurts. It's like, there's a bunch of unforced errors on top of that I just wish would happen.
It's like
But
Star
is it
Wars
better
lore.
or worse than the last season of Game of Thrones?
Here's the thing. I'm not invested in Game of Thrones to the degree that I'm invested in Tolkien's Legendarium.
So it didn't hurt as much.
I think that's the net they're all casting, is that the super fans will never be happy. Doesn't matter what we do. So let's just kind of cast that aside.
Yeah, they don't care about that. Yeah.
It's just not going to matter. We can't do good enough. So let's see what we can do to draw casual fans or new people into this with
I only watched Game of Thrones. I didn't read it. And
I did both.
The fact that it still is like bad.
Robbie can't read, so I know he didn't read it and he still didn't like it.
I haven't read since high school, and I will not. I've read Go Dog Go recently, and
yeah, you're going to start reading
Green Eggs and Ham.
A whole lot more. Yeah, that's going to keep going up until...
hey, I'm gonna get a nice illustrated Hobbit and read that. It's gonna be like first chapter.
That's a good start. I could go into that. A graphic novel. Yeah. My son is 8, so I have 2 kids, 5 and 8, and my son is a very good, voracious reader. Actually, he's read the first 3 Harry Potters so far, but he likes some comics and stuff too. That may be an introduction. So yeah, we've been reading for a while.
That's awesome. I can't wait till my daughter's old enough to be able to like sit through a reading session. She's 3.5. And I want to read The Hobbit to her so bad, but she just,
not quite old.
She's not ready for chapter books. We do like before bed reading, and we have like Roald Dahl chapter books, mostly for my son, and then you got to do something else for her.
Roald Dahl is so good. All those the Wes Anderson movies. Anyone listening? God, Wes Anderson just. I think he likes Roald Dahl a lot. It seems.
Yeah. His universe is very interesting. His latest movie I haven't seen yet. What's it called? Like
I watched
something
it. I can't remember what it's called.
No, it's something City. It's like
you're talking about the 3-parter that was on Netflix, or
I think so.
Else?
No, I think it's that. Yeah, and it's like Nuclear City or something. I cannot recall.
I'm too drunk to recall, but it's really good.
Success.
It's a bunch of short stories, and yeah, it's incredible. Google Wes Anderson new Netflix special. Yeah, it's super good.
Well, there we go. Uber geeked out. You ready to go eat, Robbie, or what?
Well, I was trying to look up the name of this thing, and even Google is failing me. It was like everything you need to know about Wes Anderson's wonderful, I don't know. It doesn't tell you the name. If someone finds us in the next minute, let us know. But otherwise,
Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. That's the one I'm thinking.
Okay. I'm thinking about something else then.
Oh, okay. That one was good.
Asteroid City is the one I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that one. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we'll see. There we go. We have two things.
That's 2023. Mine was 2024. So I mean, if we're
I'm
like
really
getting technical about
behind
who's
it.
right about the newer thing.
I mean, can we just agree to disagree? Isn't that what we do these days?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So in our last couple minutes, what do you want to plug before we end?
It's simple. Boot.dev. If you want to learn backend development, Python and Go, bunch of other stuff that's related to backend development, check it out.
And it's actually all a long Ponzi scheme to convert you to the Mormon Church. So I don't know. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Hey, if you get a
I don't pay
programming job-
tithing anymore, but it
for you.
would have 10% of the proceeds would have gone to the Mormon Church.
Yeah, but it doesn't
I
now
found it a decade
currently.
ago.
That was a joke, everyone.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Wait.
Yeah.
I got one more thing. I got to do an outro, but we never do the outros anymore. I was earlier today, I was listening to a song and I was like, I'm the Mega Mac Daddy. I'm the Mega Mac. I'm the Mega Mac Daddy. I'm the Mega Mac.
Is this your outro? Yep. Okay.
It's better.
All right. We're done.
You've been watching Whiskey, Web, and Whatnot, recorded in front of a live studio audience.
What the fuck are you talking about, Chuck?
Enjoyed the show? Subscribe.
You know people don't pay attention to these, right?
Head to Whiskey.fund for merch and to join our Discord server.
I'm serious. It's like 2% of people who actually click these links.
And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and tell your friends about the show.
All right, dude. I'm out of here.
Still got it.